Hello and welcome to Choose FI. Today in the show, we have our good friend Tori Dunlap back on the podcast for the first time since way back in episode 147 in 2019. And actually, that episode has proven to be one of the most popular and enduring in our entire 600 plus episode run, as Tori gave us specific phrases and tactics to use when negotiating salary. And I know countless of our Choose FI community members have used this to take action in their own lives. And a lot has changed for Tori since 2019. She now has over 2 million followers on each of Instagram and TikTok, and her podcast, Financial Feminist, can always be found in the top 10 business podcasts in America. She's the author of the New York Times bestselling book, Financial Feminist, and her site, herfirst100k.com, is an incredible resource for getting started with investing and putting a money plan together. You're going to really enjoy this one. And with that, welcome to Choose FI. Tori, it is so good to see you. It has been entirely too long.
We were just talking off mic that this has been 5 years since the last time I was here, which is hard to believe. One, that just 5 years have passed since 2019. I feel like 2019 was a second ago. And also that it's been this long since I've been back on the show. So thanks for having me back.
Yeah, of course. I'm thrilled to have you back. And that was not hyperbole in the intro. Your episode is probably one of the top 5, if not maybe the number 1 episode I reference for people,
Thank
which
you.
is, it's wild. It's
Yeah.
absolutely wild. That was such a help to our entire community. So, on the behalf of tens of thousands of people who have actually taken action, obviously many hundreds of thousands have listened to it, but it's remarkable. So, thank you.
I really appreciate it. If you have negotiated your salary, like reach out to us. I would love to total up like how much did we
Ooh.
get people in salary benefits? What is the dollar amount? Because that would be really, really interesting to me. So yeah, if that episode did make an impact for you, I would love to hear from you. That's great.
Oh, that's awesome. Is that, we'll obviously say where people should contact you, but is there like is it on Instagram? Where should people
Yeah,
should mention?
just send us a message. I was not going to plug myself early this
Oh, come
early.
on, go for it. Who
At
cares?
her first 100K, herfirst100k.com. No. But yeah, come reach out. Would love to hear. And yeah, we still get every once in a while we get somebody, especially in like, your Facebook group who's like, "Oh, this is the episode that I listened to." So yeah, it's really flattering and very fun. We love when our work makes a direct impact.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I totally hear you. And yeah, maybe we can dive in a little bit later on if you have any updated scripts or any info on negotiating salary. I don't know how much that factors into your current everyday life, but nevertheless, we'll see what we can do. So I went back and listened to episode 147, and you had one of the most incredible quotes, and it could have easily been missed. And you said, quote, "I believe I was put on this earth to fight for women's financial rights." And you were smiling from ear to ear, and it jumped off the page to me. And I mean, seeing your success over the last 5 years, I'd love to hear you talk about that in your own words. I was put on this earth to fight for women's financial rights. And as the dad of 2 daughters, this just gets all the feels going.
First of all, I'm really proud of 24-year-old me because she was 100% on brand. It's still something I say. I literally like went live on Instagram probably an hour before I talked to you. And literally part of my intro for people is I was put on this earth to fight for your financial rights. Like that's literally what
Wow.
I still say. Yeah, I think the whole thesis of my work and of the work we do at Her First 100K is I don't think we have any sort of equality for any marginalized group until we have financial equality. And so when it comes to having anything in life, but also, kind of the bigger stuff, which is stability and ease and safety. Money is absolutely linked to that. Like it's irrevocably linked. And so I think in my own life, in all of the women we've, helped and talked to, you start to realize that money is your best form of protest in a society and in a system that constantly disenfranchises you. And as a member of any marginalized group, there's something so, again, powerful about having your own money, about being able to make your own decisions, about being able to make your own choices. I don't mean to dive this deep this early, but a stat that I often use to like back my point up is 99% of abusive relationships have some sort of financial abuse tied to them. And when you hear a stat like that, that tells me that money is used as a form of control. It's used as a form of power and control. And again, there's something so liberating about every single person having the financial freedom to put themselves in situations they want to be in rather than situations they have to be in. And especially if you're a woman or a member of another marginalized group, that is your financial rights mean everything because it's your right to every other, flexibility and freedom.
Yeah, that's so important. Money is your best form of protest.
Yeah.
That really hits home. And I'm curious, so financial equality. I think most people wouldn't necessarily know how to define that, or even as silly as this sounds probably to your ears, they're unaware of how far the tendrils of that go. Can you give us a little more info on financial equality?
Oh gosh. I mean, you and I could talk for multiple hours about this. Yeah,
Let's
I
do it.
mean,
This is important, Tori.
great.
Obviously.
No, but it's something that, again, if you look at any single issue, again, we're talking like really broad issues like climate change or like paid family leave or poverty or anything else. Money solves those issues. Like it just does. And money in the right hands helps make the world a better place. One of the things that I grappled with a lot when I started writing my book was, okay, how do I give financial advice in a way that is inclusive and, non-shaming and non-judgmental? All of that I think I'm pretty good at. But that also doesn't tell someone who is honestly living paycheck to paycheck, "Oh, you're not working hard enough," which is a lot
Right.
of the financial advice, right? It's like someone who is living paycheck to paycheck, it's still an individual problem. Most of these issues, and I say in my book about, personal finance is about 20% individual choices. Do you save enough money? Do you, again, negotiate your salary? Do you know what a Roth IRA is? Do you pay off your debt? Do you take on debt responsibly? And 80% is all of the circumstances that we as individuals have very little control over, like those big issues: racism, sexism, ableism, homophobia, $1 trillion student debt crisis, stagnating minimum wages, a lack of paid family leave in one of the only industrialized countries in the United States, right? So I think that when it comes to financial equality, what we're really talking about is how do we not only use money in our lives to better our lives as individuals, but how do we start using money as a tool to better our communities and make not only a more equal society, but a more equitable society? And those are two different things, right? So for me, financial equality is about access to resources, having those be equitable, having access to opportunities be equitable, but also not shaming women when they do pursue money. I would love to talk to you about this because the interesting thing that I found in my own lived experience, that I found, in producing my podcast and the book, is we worship men with money in this country. Like we are so pro men having money, right? Picture a man posting a photo on Instagram on the golf course and he's got a Rolex watch, right? Or, I just made $500,000 drop shipping, right? Like all of the comments are like, "Oh my God, that's so incredible, dude. How do I do that?" Right? They're idolized.
Yeah.
What is the conversation for women? You should be donating more. That's something that I hear all the time. Why are you charging you for your services? You should just do it for free if you really cared about it. Or it's daddy's money, your husband's money. You couldn't have earned that money. So we get to a certain point where, the pursuit of wealth for women, which is really just options, right? I don't want a stack of government issued paper. That doesn't get me anything. I want what money can buy me or the flexibility that money can have and the impact money can have. When I have the audacity, or any woman has the audacity to pursue money, we live in a society that shames her for it. And that is even, again, assuming that she gets to the point where she does have financial flexibility.
Right. Yeah, the idolatry of men's wealth, as you're describing it, is it reminds me. I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan,
Yeah.
and it reminds me of the lyrics for "The Man"
It's 100% the
very
man.
explicitly, right?
It's 100%. And it's her great interview where she's like, men are strategic, women are calculating. I don't know
Right.
if you've seen that clip, but like it's very much that. It's the pursuit of wealth actively for women is considered wrong or gauche or greedy. And then my not so conspiracy theory is those narratives are put on women because they realize that she's no longer controllable. When you have money, you're no longer controllable, and the system, patriarchy, whatever you want to call it, panics and goes, "Oh, she's about to have as much power as me, or at least more power than she's had before." And so those narratives are put on women in order to continue demanding they play small. And I just I feel like I just covered like 7 things in like 4 minutes, but it's really important to discuss that, like, one, we know all of the gaps, right? We know the wage gap, we know the pay gap, we know all of those things exist. So we're dealing with all of that. Plus, we're dealing with the fact that if women do quote unquote succeed, they do get enough money, they do start to have financial independence. Society doesn't like that either. So if there's any women listening, my answer to that is get rich. Like, there's no shame in getting rich, doing well for yourself, doing well for your family, doing well for your community, because nothing bad happens when women have more money.
Get rich. You heard it here first. That's pretty damn good advice. And yeah, believe me, there's certainly a whole lot of women listening. I think last check, it was 52% of our community was
Oh, I
women. So
love
this
it.
is,
Cool.
oh
I
yeah,
didn't realize
this
it
is
was that high. That makes me
certainly a
happy.
majority. I suspect based on the number of emails that I get way more emails in response to my weekly newsletter from women. So wouldn't shock me if that percentage has increased actually. So you listed that fairly dire list of the 80% that's outside of our control.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, how can people of good faith impact that positively? Right? Like, I think that has to be the goal here, right? Like, where do we go?
I love this question. I always say you control the things that you can control, and then you work to change everything else. So, if you want to make an impact with your choices on a day to day basis, you know all this stuff, right? But just a quick recap, it's, using your money to support women owned, POC owned businesses and small businesses in your community. It is donating to causes you believe in. It is voting, even when we might have candidates that we don't absolutely love, we still vote, or especially local elections. I had this great episode on my show, Amanda Littman, who runs Run for Something. She founded this whole movement to basically support first time candidates who
Hmm.
have never run for office before at a local level. A lot of conversation happens with the presidential election, right? We've been talking about this upcoming election for basically 8 years at this point, but like it's about your local
Yeah.
politics. That has a day to day impact, and you have a much bigger say on that than you do the presidential election, right? Who's on your school board? She mentioned coroners, but which you don't think like coroners, you're like, I don't know
Huh.
how that impacts you. But coroners were writing causes of death on death certificates at the peak of COVID. So if they weren't saying this
Right.
person died by COVID, there weren't as many ventilators in that community. The vaccine rollout was slower. Like, you can see this impact that happens in your local politics. I think talking about money is something, you're listening to this show right now, you're probably already doing it, but that is such an easy thing that we can do that is absolutely transformative, which is talking about your salary openly, having conversations with your children and raising them to be smart with money, talking with your partner, hopefully before you get married or before you are committed to each other, having conversations about money. And, in terms of these bigger issues that feel like bigger than us, yeah, I mean, it's that Margaret Mead quote, right? Like, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Like, that's it. So, voting, supporting the legislation you want to see, talking about money, using your dollar, right? Voting with your dollar. And I think just what I've realized with running her first 100K, especially in the 5 years since I've been here, there is something so incredibly powerful about just the like release of guilt and shame that comes with the acknowledgement that maybe there's outside forces. There's so many women who come to me and they're like, I was always shamed for not having money. I was shamed that I didn't know enough about money. I felt guilty. I felt bad about taking on debt, but I'm working really hard and I'm doing everything I feel like I can do, but it's still quote unquote not enough. And so, they ended up shaming themselves further, and they find our content and they're like, oh, there's there, of course, there's all of these issues that have a much bigger impact on my day-to-day money than whether or not I'm working hard enough.
Yeah, I love how you're talking about the conversations on every level. And I think it's critical to be overt about it. And it's interesting because, I mentioned I have two daughters, and my older one is in 10th grade and she's taking a personal finance course.
Cool.
Now, I would have assumed that this would be something she'd ace. I mean, A, she's just beyond an amazing student, and B, she's living in our house. And I feel like we've done a good job of talking about money and such, but she's actually having somewhat of a hard time. And my wife and I had the realization, actually, quite literally yesterday, that we need to be more overt about this. And that's in our house, right?
Yeah.
Like, we live and breathe this stuff. I think that would be, obviously, I can only talk as the subset of parents, of, in this case, daughters, but you have to be overt about it. It's really, really important. You can't just assume that this is somehow through the ether and osmosis
Osmosis.
that, right? It ain't happening.
Yeah, it was really funny. I actually went on a different podcast that was, a conversation about all of the taboo topics. So it was like money and sex and all of that. And literally the host, who's a friend of mine, she asked, like, you had a great financial education from your parents. And we talked about that, I think, last time I was on the
Yeah, you
show,
bet.
which was so great, right? And it was a privilege to have that financial education from my parents. But she asked, she goes, "Do you know how much your parents make?" And I go, "No." Like, I still have no idea. For as financially transparent as we were growing up, there was still like certain things that I think generationally, I think just socially, they weren't willing to talk to me about, which I just think is so interesting. They know still how much is in my bank account right now, but I don't know what's going on with them. Like, I know they're fine because I did ask them, like, "Are you well off? Are you okay? Do you need help?" And they're like, "No, we've got it. We're going to be fine, taking care of ourselves." And I'm like, "Okay." And that's all I know. So even like, radically transparent, focused on financial education, there's still these narratives that are perpetuated that keep us from talking openly about money, from the pursuit of wealth, from again using money in a smart way to not only better ourselves but to better the world around us. It's perpetuated so early on as children, and we live in a society that is so focused on secrecy because we believe that our net worth is our self-worth, and we tie our identity up with money. And so if, I talk about my salary with my friends, they're going to, think that I'm less worthy of love and belonging. And of course that's not true, but that's what we believe, that's what we think.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. Well, let's take a quick sidebar and say the first half of the episode that you did back in 147 often gets overlooked because of the amazing negotiating skills. But the first half of the episode is remarkable. Like, if that just stood on its own, for everybody who hasn't listened, first go back and listen to it, because Tori talks about how her dad helped her start a vending machine business, I think at 9 years old, right?
Yeah,
Something crazy
it
like
was
that.
9.
It is wild. And like, it's funny because I'm sitting here as the dad of a nearly 16-year-old and a 12-year-old and saying, "Oh man, I screwed this up. Like, I've missed it." But I think what that does is embolden you to do cool stuff and to take chances and help your kids learn. So yeah, I mean, that was awesome. Absolutely awesome. Second, it's fascinating. So your parents they know your net worth
Mhm.
today? Interesting. How does that come up?
I call them and tell them.
Heck
No,
yeah.
it just or sometimes they'll ask their advice, or sometimes, I don't own a home. That's something we can talk about actually, but
Yeah, I
I'm a
want to talk about that.
multimillionaire who rents. And, I'm starting to have conversations with them of like, is it time to buy? And like, is it time to buy something where maybe it's like my secondary property, but I still keep renting? Because I live in Seattle. Renting is actually cheaper right now than buying a house, especially with interest rates the way they are. Like, my rent is cheaper. Mortgage would probably be double what I'm paying in rent right now.
Yeah.
So, we're having a lot of conversations about that. And also, I would be lying, I think, if it wasn't a little bit of, not bragging, but my parents didn't want me to quit my job to run my business full time. They told me, like, "You need to do anything you have to do to keep your job." Literally, like, probably a couple months after you and I spoke for the first time on the
Yeah.
show, it got to the point where it was very clear, like, I needed to leave. It was time, and I had just been on Good Morning America. I had hit my own 100K goal of saving 100K at 25. And yeah, things were getting a little sticky at work, and it was getting very obvious that it was time for me to go. And I remember calling my parents, and they were like, "No, you need your 401K and you need your healthcare and you need to stay." And I was like, "I think I gotta just do it." And of course, I'm making more money now than ever, and I have more flexibility than ever, and I'm doing great. And so I think sometimes I call them as like a, "Hey, I'm doing just fine. I'm doing great. Remember when I didn't
Don't you
listen to your
worry.
advice? I'm doing fine."
Yep. Don't you worry about me. I'm doing just fine. And
Yep.
and yeah, I mean, it sounds like, I know in our first episode we talked about how thankful you were, obviously, that they gave you
Yeah.
this education. And I mean, look, that was part of a springboard for building the foundation, right? And it's remarkable to see where you've come from. And I definitely do want to talk about renting,
Yeah.
but we'll get back to that in a second, because not only is it cheaper, but just if you're comparing the mortgage to the rent,
Oh, yeah.
but not even including the cost of ownership, all the costs that go into, down to, I mean, we just had our irrigation system turned on,
Right.
and right, like, you have to get the HVAC system looked at twice a year
Gotta
for
replace your roof
$270. Like,
when the
oh,
pipes burst. What are you gonna
it's
do? Yeah,
crazy.
totally.
Yeah. So I'm definitely on team renting, but I'm curious. So, okay, last we spoke to you, you were just about 25. you had saved 100K, which was remarkable. But like you've mentioned a couple of times, you are now a multimillionaire. Your business has grossed many, many millions of dollars in the intervening 5 years. And I'm curious, this is a financial independence show. I'm curious how you think about FI and how FI impacts your life and your decisions.
Yeah. So I went from 100K at 25 years old to multimillionaire financially independent at 27. A lot happened in those 2 years, which was I would not have been able to do that had I not quit my job and become a full-time entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is not for everybody, but if there's one thing I can point to for that, 24-month change, it was entrepreneurship. Yes, I was investing, I was saving, I was budgeting, I was doing all of the things I was supposed to do. But there is a certain, of course, risk with entrepreneurship, right? It could have failed, but the upside of that risk was, in fact, it went really well for me. So, yeah, at 27, I was financially independent, meaning, of course, that I could quit my job without another one lined up or stop the business and be okay for the rest of my life. However, I really like the work that I do and I don't plan on quitting anytime soon. But there is, again, to tie it back to what we were talking about earlier, there is something so incredibly beautiful that happens when you have money, even if you don't plan on retiring, which is that, again, I don't have to stay in a situation that doesn't respect me. Like something that seems so like 1950s to talk about in 2024. But we know from statistics that women who are dating men or are interested in men, a good chunk of them are looking for a partner for financial stability. Like a huge chunk of them still are looking for a partner who, has that stable job and is able to provide. I don't ever have to think about that again. I get to date people and fall in love with people because I actually love them and I actually want to be with them, not because I'm financially dependent on them. I can also leave a relationship at any time because I'm not financially dependent on them. I can work from wherever I want. I can fire a client if they don't respect us because we have enough money to do that. I get to give people jobs, right? We have a team now of 15 people at her first 100K. So
Wow.
there's just so much cool stuff that's come from financial independence that has nothing to do with lounging on a beach, drinking pina coladas, and never working again. And again, this is why I'm like, I love being uncontrollable. It's so fun. It's so fun to be able to have the financial flexibility to take care of myself, to take care of the people around me, to grow this business in the way that I want to grow it without ever wondering, do we have enough money to do it?
Yeah, I love it. And, I think the caricature of the pina coladas and laying on
Right.
the beach, I think that's one thing, if I can pat ourselves in the back here at Choose a Vi about, is we've really changed the narrative from this fire to financial independence, right? And that being what we're all pursuing. I think that's the goal of personal finance is
Totally.
financial independence, right? It's a universal good. And yeah, it's remarkable to see that. I mean, to have that happen in a 24-month period for you, it's got to be wild. And I'm curious, so really actionable advice. And obviously I don't expect you to go into like dollars and cents, but how do you deal with a large influx of money? I mean, I think granularly a lot of people are getting maybe an inheritance and they don't
Right.
know what to do with it. So maybe we could use that as a proxy, but like how did you deal with this massive influx of money over a very short period of time?
Yeah. So whether it's an inheritance or you listen to my previous episode and now you're $10,000 richer because you negotiated more money, right? Like maybe you just have some extra money now and you're trying to figure out what to do with it. I would say, and there's very few personal finance experts that are going to say this, but I think you and I, Brad, are both similar in this. You're going to spend a little bit of it on yourself. Like
Yeah.
go buy something nice. Like I just think that's great. I don't think it's sustainable to just say, no, you need to save 100% of it. Like as I started getting more money, I grew her first 100K and literally lived until I was 27 in a one bedroom apartment, 650 square feet. That was my gym and my kitchen. And also my desk was in the corner where I literally grew my multi-million-dollar business. It was time for me to upgrade. So like I moved to a place that I'm in an office. This is one of the bedrooms in the house, multiple bedrooms. It was like, okay, I want a dedicated place to work. That was an upgrade for me that I was willing to spend money on to improve my life. Vacations. I start staying in slightly nicer hotels now, or I use my credit card points to stay in slightly nicer hotels. But spend a little bit of that money, not on a Ferrari, unless you're making crazy, crazy money, but like go spend it on something nice for yourself. I think that's really important. And then the rest of it, I just invested it. So we obviously know, if you're a loyal listener to the show, that you have your tax advantage options. So you've got your, IRA, you've got your 401k. So I did everything I could to max those out. And typically I would max those out by January 15th. So I'm like, okay, so what do I do
What do I do
with the
now?
rest of my year? And that is, a brokerage account. This is where a brokerage account is really powerful because, yes, you don't get the tax advantages, but you can put $10 million in that account if you've got it. So I just do everything I can to invest in my brokerage account. And then something that is, unique to entrepreneurship, but can be applied to anybody who's listening. I got to a certain point with, financial independence where I realized, okay, I'm single. I don't own property. I don't have any children right now. For now, I'm good. So I will continue to invest a little bit of money. I'll continue to, pay myself a salary. But a lot of the money now that is profit for the business just goes back into the business. It goes into business reserves. It goes into making sure that, if we have a bad quarter or even a bad like half a year, we're going to be okay. Because my job now, right? And this is the power again of financial independence, is once you're good, you get to make sure everything else is good too around you. You get to start, your cup is full, you get to start pouring from that cup. So now a lot of the money that I have is going into making sure that the business continues to be successful, continues to have a little bit of a nest egg, and that we can do some of the bigger things maybe that I've wanted to do, but haven't had the business budget to do. And regardless of whether you're an entrepreneur or not, right? If you're thinking about investing, yes, we mean it in the literal personal finance definition, which is like putting money in the stock market, but we also mean it in investing in yourself, investing in your business. Maybe it's, okay, I have a little extra money and I've always wanted to go back to school, or I've always wanted to start that business, but I haven't had enough capital to do it, or I've just wanted to do this really expensive hobby, right? And it's like it's an investment in my own joy. So also think about money in terms of investing beyond the Roth IRA or the 401k, which is like, how can I invest in my skill set, invest in myself, invest in my happiness, invest in the growth of something long term? And that's what I've really been focused on the last year or two.
Yeah, it's so important. And yeah, I'm right there with you. I think 2023 was definitely the most that we've ever spent just generally
Us
in
too.
life. And yeah, and it's okay, right? When you
Yeah.
and I think so many people on their FI journey have to get to that inflection point where they understand, okay, look, it's okay to let up on the purse strings a little bit. And it's important to, like you said, spend on yourself. I know I've spent more on my health in the last basically 24 months than I have in my
Oh, I'm
entire
about to
life.
send $1,000 to a personal trainer literally right after
No
you and I
kidding.
talk. Like, yeah, because I sacrificed, this is something we can talk about. I sacrificed my physical health over the last 3 years building a business. Like, this is the other that I wish like people talked about more, is it's like this like laser focus pursuit of a goal is great, but it comes with consequences. Whether that's FI, whether that's, for me, it was New York Times bestseller status. Like, I wanted that sticker on our book. And
Mhm.
I pushed myself, and I don't regret it, because even I knew as I was doing it, this was a sprint and the sprint was going to be difficult, but I had to sacrifice a lot to be able to do that. And so, that's again a conversation about balance. It's a conversation about, you can't sprint forever. It's called a sprint on purpose, right? And so I even remember listening to the show back before I was a personal finance expert and thinking, in my one bedroom apartment, should I move into a place with roommates so that I can reach FI faster? Like, I remember even thinking about that because I was obsessed with it.
Yeah.
I was, on Net Worthify probably 3 times a week figuring out, ooh, if I saved $50 more a month, how soon could I reach financial independence? How many years could I shave off of this? And so I was obsessed with it. And it's also really important for people to understand that 99% of diets don't work, right? 99% of diets don't work, because the more you tell me I can't have fried chicken, the more I want fried chicken. And that is not a willpower thing, that's literal psychology. You can be laser focused towards a goal, and you can also find balance to be able to spend money thoughtfully on yourself, to be able to take care of yourself through it, and to also understand that, if our mutual friend over at Marriage, Kids, and Money, Andy Hill, talks about this, and I think his story was great, where he was pursuing financial independence so hard that, with 2 young kids with his wife, it got to the point where he realized, I'm sacrificing things that I want to do as a family just because I'm so obsessed with getting to this goal. And that's not sustainable. That's not fun. And frankly, it doesn't work. Like, it does not work.
Yeah, agreed. Any type of I think of it as like short-term thinking. It's short-term
Right,
versus
right.
long-term, right? So anything that is akin to a diet, whether it's food or finances in this case, when by its very nature, it is finite. It's I'm trying to get to X. And then the dot 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 is and then all hell breaks loose, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not gonna just keep on, like you said, you can't sprint forever.
Or you think, then I'll be happy.
Right.
Like, I just want to pause us there. Women, it's largely your physical health. It's often when I get to this weight, and I'm sure it's the same for men, but like there's so much pressure on women to look a certain way. It's when I don't have a stomach, then I'll be happy. When I don't weigh this much, then I'll be happy. When I have that job, when I have this amount of money in my bank account, when I am a New York Times bestseller, then I'll be happy. And let me tell you, as someone who has millions in her bank account, is a New York Times bestseller, like that is such an accomplishment and I do feel so proud. And yes, it brought me a little bit of happiness, but like again, it's not about the stack of government issued paper. That doesn't get me anything. It's what money can buy me or the influence I can have to change other people's lives or to change my own life or to change and impact my community with that money. If you are pursuing a goal just thinking, again, I will do this and then I'll be happy, to your point, all hell breaks loose. And you're not going to be happy with this.
No.
It's how can we use money as a tool to better our own lives? How can we use money as a tool in our toolkit with all of our other tools to find that stability and also to make the world a better place for ourselves and our kids and our communities?
Yeah. Happiness is certainly quite elusive. I
Yeah.
think you and I both know that from our lived experience, and it is a constant work in progress.
And it's a choice. That's the
Yeah,
thing I've realized too. Like you choose to be happy.
yeah.
Happiness is not something you arrive at. I didn't realize that we were having I was going to take this into like TJ Maxx embroidered on a throw pillow. Like but like happiness is a choice. You have to
Yeah,
decide, yes, I'm going to show up as the best version of myself and I'm going to be happy today or at least content today.
yeah. I wholeheartedly agree. And like you said, impact. That matters. It matters so much. And it doesn't have to be world-changing impact, right? You don't have to be Tori Dunlap. You can make impact in your family, in your community,
Right.
right? In your town, in your city, whatever it may be. And I think looking for that, looking outside of ourselves, I've found has had a significant impact on happiness. And it's very easy to be myopic and just think about yourself. But like that is not, again, short term versus long term. That is not a long term recipe for success. It just isn't.
Yeah, and back to what we were talking about before, in terms of making an impact, right? There's concrete things you can do. Having conversations about money, voting with your dollars, donating to causes you believe in. Again, talking about money is something that costs nothing, right? It's just that level of bravery to be open and transparent and vulnerable with other people in your life.
Yeah, agreed. Tori, I want to kind of switch gears a little bit and maybe get into some nuts and bolts kind of stuff. So,
Great.
how does financial advice differ for men and women?
This is another one where I'm like, how much time do you have?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna set up my soapbox here and I'm gonna climb up on top of it. Okay. It differs in every possible way. If you want more, I will shamelessly plug my book because this is the entire thesis of it.
Beautiful.
My book, Financial Feminist, covers this in more detail. Okay. I'm gonna take us all the way back to childhood. I'm gonna use the gender binary here because it's just easier for this example. But stereotypically, what toys are boys given? Right? They are given Legos, trucks, things to build. They are told that their quote unquote value to society is their own ingenuity, is their own critical thinking, is their ability to fail and get back up again, right? Resilience. Stereotypically, what are girls given? Dolls, easy bake ovens, bridal veils. They are told that their quote unquote value to society is in how giving they are to others. It's not about their own identity. It's not about their own intrinsic value. It's not about their own critical thinking or their own ingenuity. It's about how altruistic can you be? How much can you sacrifice yourself for somebody else, right? We give a 2-year-old child a literal another child to take care of. That's bonkers crazy to me, right? So, what I was talking about before of this pursuit of money and wealth, right? When boys turn into men and they start pursuing money, that is socially acceptable because we have told boys that, again, their value is in Yeah, their own ingenuity, starting businesses, bringing in bonuses at work. But the moment, again, a woman has money, the conversation is you need to give it away. We tax women. Now, I am not disparaging donating, right? Big fan of donating. We should donate money. I don't think billionaires should exist. Whole conversation for another time. But the thing about women is that, again, when society, patriarchy realizes they're no longer controllable, they start taxing women. They start demanding that they play small, and they weaponize that altruism that is in women since day one, which is you need to donate more. Why are you charging for your services? If you really care to just be free, etc. So when we look at something like that, well, what is the advice even now in 2024 when you Google personal finance advice for men? That advice for men is to expand. It's to be bigger. It's invest, crypto, real estate, negotiate your salary, start a business, right? It's all good advice, maybe with the crypto with the asterisks, but
Yeah,
like it's
yeah,
all good
not so much.
advice, right? It's like get more money, make more money, learn how to expand, right? What is the advice for women? Yes, even in 2024, stop spending money. That's the advice for women.
Hmm.
The advice for women is the reason you're not rich is the latte, the manicure, the designer purse. You have a shopping addiction, and that's the reason you're not rich. And so if you just stop spending, you'll become a millionaire. Let's just talk about the personal finance. Like, again, you talked about the nuts and bolts. Let's just talk about the math of that. At the end of the day, there's only so much you can cut, right? Like, let's say I do take that advice personally and I never spend on anything discretionary ever again. Well, I still have my rent. I still have groceries I have to buy. I still have to buy my insurance, right? At the end of the day, there's only so much that you can cut. You're also, you can bleep this if you want, miserable. You're miserable because there's nothing, life is not worth living, right? You're not traveling, you're not going down to eat, you're not seeing friends, you're not buying anything that might even be a little nice for yourself because, again, you've been told that the pursuit of wealth for women, the pursuit of wealth is about shrinking. It's about spending less. It's about not expanding, not making more money, but about spending less. The other thing, and again, there's an entire chapter in my book about this, is that spending, we only use the word frivolous when it comes to spending for stereotypically feminine purchases. Frivolous spending is the manicures, the lattes, the, getting your hair blown out, whatever. It's not NFL season tickets. It's not golf clubs. It's not video games, right? So even the purchases that you're telling me are bad, right? Men can have hobbies, women can't. Men are allowed to have hobbies and to invest money in those hobbies. Women are not allowed to. And those hobbies are the reason they're not rich. If we want to go even a level further, again, this is like you've peeled back the onion here, Brad.
I
Keep
love it.
going.
I love it.
The very things that women are shamed for are also the things that I have to do as a woman in order to seem quote unquote professional. So you're telling me that makeup is the reason that I can't afford a house, right? Or that I can't save money. What if I show up to a job interview without makeup? But even more severely for women of color, right? Black women over and over and over again have been told that their natural hair is less quote unquote professional. And we actually have data that shows that they are more likely to not get promotions, to not get a position, to not get opportunities if they wear their hair in a natural way. So the very things that you're telling me are the reason I can't pursue wealth, or the reasons that I am not able to save or able to pay off my debt are also the things you require in order for me to get that job, to get the promotion, or else you tell me I look tired at work. I give the example in my book of everything I had to do to even shoot my book cover. Like, I was in a salon chair
Oh
just to do
God.
my hair for 5 hours. Let's
Oh
talk
my
about
God.
not just the cost of that, which by the way was $500. And yes, I could have gone to a cheaper salon, but come on, it wouldn't have looked as good. Let's be real. So 5 hours. So not only am I spending my money, but also my time, my energy, right? I had to get my nails done. I had to put on makeup. I had to get my eyebrows waxed, right? And yes, you could make the argument that none of this is necessary. However, if you are a woman, you know that in order to, again, progress in a society, you have to perform femininity in a certain way. So, to your original question, how does the personal finance advice differ? That is just like 3 high level
Yeah.
examples. I have many, many more. But at the core of it is really men are allowed to pursue wealth and they're told to expand. Again, they're told to make more money, and women are not allowed to pursue wealth in the same way. And they're told that the answer to the personal finance equation is to actually spend less to shrink themselves, basically to hate your life.
Yeah. Wow. That is quite an answer, Tori. And but no, I love it because I think again, you eat, live, breathe, sleep this, right? You talk about this all the time. And this is not to excuse people in our community who are unaware of it, but frankly, some people are just unaware of the pervasiveness
Yeah.
of this. And I think what's beautiful and challenging about this in the best possible way is it just opens our aperture for, okay, look, whether you knew it or not, this is going on. It
Yeah.
exists and you have to be aware.
And I want to highlight too, because I know that especially in more of the traditional personal finance community, a lot of this stuff is deemed quote unquote radical. It's one, not really that radical. And two, it's really important for me to define what I mean when I say patriarchy. When I say patriarchy, I do not mean men. I want to be very clear about that. I love men. I date men. Men are great. The shares quote, men are the coolest, but I don't really need them to live. Right. The patriarchy hurts you, Brad, and all other men just as much as it hurts women. And I would sometimes argue it hurts you all more because there are certain expectations for what a man should be providing, right? All powerful, never showing emotion, right? And so when I say patriarchy, really what I mean is a system that continues to aid and abet inequality and also nobody succeeds under patriarchy. Like no one, including men, are allowed to be the most authentic version of themselves. So that's something for me that I really want to highlight, especially if you are a male identifying listener. When I say patriarchy, I do not mean men because all of this impacts you all as well. It's more the systems, again, that exist that keep us from progressing and from viewing each other as equals and as partners in crime rather than enemies.
Yeah, the phrase that keeps coming to my mind is like the underlying societal scripts,
Yes.
right? And I think obviously, yeah, since you did describe patriarchy, you in your case, you're not describing as male, but that's why, like, yeah, my brain would immediately go to that. Is it's these scripts that are holding all of us down, to your point.
Right.
And that's a really interesting and important way of looking at it. I love that, Tori. I really do. So, Tori, I again another just kind of random question. You see a lot of newer investors,
Yeah.
and I'm curious, what are the couple of like big mistakes that you see new investors making?
Love this question. For those of us in the personal finance investing community for a while, these might sound like so obvious, but I need to highlight that this happens to literally millions of people because I talk to them on a day-to-day basis. And if you are new to this community, hello, we're going to prevent you from making these mistakes. Okay. First one, the Roth IRA, the 401k is not the investment. It is the account that holds the investments. I like to describe it as a two-step process. You put money in the account and then you have to go choose your investments. I tell the story in my book about this cute lady who was a teacher. We called her Rose, who put aside a portion of her paycheck in her 401k, literally for her entire life, her entire teaching career. She was so good and such a good saver and such a good investor, and she put money aside literally every single paycheck. She is, late 60s, early 70s, ready to retire. She goes and she looks at her 401k and realizes it was never actually invested.
Oh
This
my
is a
gosh.
true story. And we literally hear from dozens of community members who, have joined our community, who follow us, who hear me talk about this and they go, I just went and looked and my Roth IRA has just been sitting there for 5 years because no
Huh.
one told me I have to do step two. Now, you and I know better than anybody else what those 5 years or 30 or 40 years could have been if it was actually invested. So, the Roth IRA, the 401k is the thing that holds the investments. It is not the investment. It's not like a bank where you walk in, you put $1,000 in a bank account, you're done. You've got to take your money and then go choose your investments. So that is the first thing. The second thing is that to the general public, the word investing is so loaded because of, again, those narratives you might have been believing from friends or family, or even just like TikTok, right? We have over 2 million followers on TikTok. I see some crazy shit on TikTok where investing for many people equals gambling. Investing
Yeah.
equals going and putting it all on black or betting on a racehorse, right? Like because this lack of education, people don't understand the difference between day trading, picking the hot stock, and smart, diversified index fund type investing. So when I start talking about investing, a lot of people, again, who are new to the community, will do the like, yeah, but isn't that gambling? To some people, it is. If you're out here trying to short AMC, like, yeah, it's gambling. But if we're looking at investing as it should be, which is the definition of the word invest, right? Which is to put energy, money into something for a long period of time, that is smart investing. So a lot of people either don't get started or they feel too intimidated because they're just like, my uncle lost all of his money on this investing scheme, right? Or I saw 2008 and I saw how scary it was, but they don't see the numbers from this year, right? Or they don't see that diversified investing is about a little bit riding a roller coaster and patience. So that's the second thing is investing is not gambling, or at least doesn't have to be. And actually the investing that is the smartest type of investing doesn't require all of that much time and effort. It requires kind of a set it and forget it strategy with something like an index fund. And then the third one, oh, would love to talk about this with you. So many people think, okay, if I'm going to invest, I've been told it's way too complicated and it's way too scary. So I'm going to give it to somebody else. I'm going to give it to a stockbroker. I'm going to give it to a financial advisor. The stat that I found when I was writing my book blew my mind. Over the past decade, so over the last 10 years, only 25% of professional stock pickers outperformed a general civilian, individual investors making smart, diversified investing choices. I'm going to say that again. Only a quarter of professionals, people we give our hard earned money to go out there and invest and ideally outperform the market, are actually outperforming you listening, you as an individual investor making those smart, diversified investment choices. So, what does that tell me? That tells me that we have a multi billion dollar, probably trillion dollar industry, the finance industry, that is built on making you feel like you're too stupid to understand. We have this massive conspiracy, basically, but we have this massive industry that makes investing seem complicated and uses all of this jargony language and all these graphs and these charts. And like, if you've logged into any sort of investing platform in the last 10 years, even if you are a confident investor and know your way around it, it is still so confusing. I'm a finance expert, and anytime I log into Charles Schwab or Fidelity, like I want to die. It's like, it's so confusing and so unnecessarily confusing so that you call up one of their advisors or so that you get your funds managed for you and they make money off of you, but they're bad at their jobs. So if you're out there thinking this is way too complicated for me to understand, it's really not. It's about finding advice that makes sense for you and also thinking about, okay, how can I learn enough about investing to get started as opposed to being an investing expert? With women, I especially see this because, again, back to my original example with how we teach boys and girls, we teach boys to be resilient, we teach girls to be perfect. We teach them it's perfect or nothing. So, a lot of women, when they get started investing, they log into one of these platforms because their dad told them to get on Vanguard, and they log into Vanguard, and then it's way too confusing and they hit the bail button because they're like, I'm so afraid of making a mistake. But really, we just got to get you started. And this is why I actually built an investing platform. I literally co-created, since I've been here, a platform to invest because all of the platforms I saw out there were way too confusing to navigate. And all of the robo advising platforms were way too passive. They're not teaching you anything of like why they're picking the things they're picking. They're not telling you what an index fund is or how to invest properly. So I literally built a platform that now has $70 million invested, most of which is by first time investors. It's called Stock Market School. You can find it anywhere, but it's literally this idea of like, okay, I want to teach you to invest in a way that isn't going to make you terrified of making the wrong choice, but also allows you to invest for yourself. So yeah, those are three of, I think, the biggest like narratives or common mistakes, which is, again, thinking the Roth IRA is the investment, thinking that investing is gambling, so I'm just not going to do it, or thinking it's way too complicated, so I'm just going to hand my money over to someone who, frankly, is bad at their job.
Yeah, I love that. And the 25%, I mean, I'd be curious to see the stats over a 30-year period. right? Like
Right.
what is vanishingly small, the percentage of supposed professionals who can outperform the market. And certainly net of fees, Tori, it's got to be almost zero.
Well, and I think, there's so many financial professionals out there that, of course, are really smart. If you are going to work with somebody, please make sure they're a fiduciary, meaning they're legally obligated to act in your own best interest, right? And I just think that there's a gap in education. People think, I need help with my finances. And they think, well, the only thing that's out there is a financial advisor. And it's like, there's a huge gap between I'm just getting started on my financial journey, or even I want to start investing and I need somebody to manage it for me. That's a huge gap. But people don't understand that because they're desperate, which I totally understand. They're feeling anxious about their money and they're like, this is too confusing. So I'm going to hand it over to somebody else. Right. So I would really not recommend doing that. It's not as complicated as people make it out to be. And for most people, it ends up costing a lot more money. If you are going to work with somebody, you want somebody who's a fiduciary and who's fee based, who's not going to take a percentage, who's not going to, I'm sure you've talked about this on the show, but isn't going to take a percentage, isn't going to like charge a management fee on top of all of that, but instead is like doing an hourly rate for a conversation with them.
Yeah. And we certainly have talked about it, but we can't reiterate it enough,
Yeah.
honestly, because it's so important. And just to kind of put some numbers to this. So, one of the things that I wrote or created that I'm proudest of was actually on my way back, my like little personal finance website called Richmond Savers. So, this one is Vanguard funds and the impact of fees on your investment. So, Tori, I don't know if you've ever seen this or not, but basically, so my gross return was a little exaggerated. So back then I was assuming a 9% gross return. And then I was saying, okay, you have $100,000 invested and you put in $1,000 monthly. Okay, that's probably pretty reasonable for somebody in the FI community, assuming a 9% gross market return. And basically, the balance at year 40 would be about $7.2 million. Now, if you put it in a Vanguard fund with 0.05 or any index fund with 0.05 expense ratio, you have about $7.1 million. So you've lost $100,000 to expenses, which sounds like a lot, but just wait, it's coming, right? So, and that's about as good as you can possibly do. Now, contrast that with, okay, you went to a financial advisor who, like you said, charges an assets under management fee, and let's say it's 1%. So you have an 8% net return. You've lost almost $2 million to fees, $2 million. And of course, Tori, as you know, it doesn't stop there, right? Because
Nope.
if you're going to a financial advisor, they are not going to put you in a Vanguard fund,
Nope.
right? They're going to put you in an expensive mutual fund. So I assume that that fund then had a 1% fee. So it sounds fairly innocuous, right? Oh, it's just 1%. So your gross 9% return gets down to a 7% net return, to where you've lost almost half of your money. You've lost $3.3 million out of 7.2. That is crazy town. That's what it amounts to.
And maybe if we paid that fee, people would be good at their jobs, right? So maybe, okay, we can spend a little bit more, right? We were talking about investing in ourselves earlier, right? Maybe we spend a little bit more for these financial professionals to outperform the market. But back to my original stat, they don't.
They can. Yeah.
They can't. So that's so much in fees. And I just want to highlight this is the other thing is all of this jargon gets thrown around and I like to break it down. For your community, they probably know already, but an expense ratio is just the fancy jargony term for fees. Like what is the cost of the fund? So like my favorite is VTI, 0.03% in fees. Like you can't find lower than that. But to Brad's point, if we're at 0.5%, 1% more than that, again, it doesn't seem like a lot, but 1% over $1 million, that's a lot of money. Or with this example of, 100K invested for the long term. And this is again, I just want to highlight what you just said because it's so important. There's that fee, and then there's a fee that a potential financial professional, and I put professionals in the most massive air quotes ever, is also going to charge you. I see so many people because they don't know any better, because they don't know what's out there, go to some place, and I'm going to name drop them, Edward Jones. If you look up the fee structure for Edward Jones, it's a 3.5% fee. 3.5%. Before you've invested anything,
That's crazy.
they're taking 3.5%. Now, again, that doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a huge chunk of your money. So a lot of people will then ask me, well, how do I make sure the person I'm working with doesn't charge those fees? Ask. Just ask. Are you a fiduciary? They will either tell you yes or they will tell you no. Well, they won't really tell you no. They'll go, oh, well, I give you the best recommendation. Just watch that. The second, what fees are you charging me? Show me every fee that you're charging me, both for your services as well as the actual cost of these investments. And the biggest thing that I just want anybody to take away with, and it sounds so like woo woo fluff fluff, but like if your gut does not feel good, it knows. Like if you're talking to somebody and they're promising you things that sound too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true. If you're just getting like weird snake oil vibes, or if you just like something in your gut is saying, no, 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 please listen to it. Because again, back to my point about my original example of this cute little old lady named Rose, right? Like one, she didn't know any better because nobody taught her. But two, if she did go to somebody, right? Like I need you to understand that this doesn't just have an impact on your money now. It has an impact on your money for years, if not decades to come. And it's not, okay, 3%, whatever. It's actually a huge chunk of your hard earned money.
Yeah. So important. And I'm glad you spent so much time talking about it because these lessons are critical. And I mean, people can learn by obviously listening to this podcast, reading your book, reading The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins would really cover the investing, not gambling, and the understanding that, hey, investing can be pretty simple. Like you said, I love how you focus on VTI. That's my updated advice now of, not that we give financial advice, yada, 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 but VTSAX has kind of become this like meme in the financial independence
Yep.
community. And frankly, it's just not the best advice anymore because I think a lot of people go to Fidelity or Schwab and try to buy VTSAX and they get hit with these massive fees. You can get VTI. It is the same exact
It's
thing.
the
It's
same
just the
thing.
ETF version, right? And you don't get hit with fees.
I've been choo-chooing on this VTI train since like 2015. I love it. It's
Nice.
my favorite. So, yeah, I mean, to your point, it's just like VTSAX. I think it's actually lower in fees. Like the
Yeah.
expense ratio is lower. So, yeah, just thinking about investing as a long-term strategy. I wish I could tell you the strategies to get rich quick tomorrow. Like it doesn't exist. If it did, I think we would both tell you. We wouldn't gatekeep it. We'd both tell you. But it doesn't exist, at least not without a ton of risk. So yeah, you see all these stories of people who did, short sell and who, got the crypto boom and all of that. But like you're not seeing the people who took their life savings and actually lost it all. You're not seeing the people who, got in too late. And then again, there's a massive amount of risk when you view investing or really money in general as a day-to-day thing. We are paying off our debt with the expectation that it's going to take a while. We are investing with the expectation it's going to take a while. You don't go into the gym once and walk out looking like Dwayne the Rock Johnson. Like I wish, give me that magic
Yeah,
genie
seriously, I'll
point.
take
Like
that pill.
would love that, but that doesn't exist. So we're of course as human beings we want immediate gratification. We want immediate change. It's not the way this works, and instead we want to think about this for the long term.
Yeah. Tori, feels like that is the perfect energetic place to leave this episode. I hate my biggest pet peeve as a podcaster is not closing the loop on things. And we didn't close the loop
We
on
can talk.
the buy versus rent. You want to?
Yeah, let's talk really quick.
Okay, let's do it. And do you have a podcast episode on buy versus rent?
Yeah, I have a couple. So if you want more information about why I choose to rent versus buy, there's literally a podcast episode I did, and I can give the TLDR version of
Yeah,
it.
let's hear it.
I almost bought property at 22, and it was the best decision I ever made to back out. And again, I talk more about why. I am very similar. Ramit Sethi and I are colleagues and friends. He is a renter, not a buyer. He's come on my show to talk about it. It's very much that like, this is just not the season of my life to own a home. It requires, like we were talking about before, a lot of maintenance, a lot of costs. People just think, okay, owning property is immediately going to be the better financial decision. However, I have friends who've lost money on their homes. I have friends who just don't have the time or the energy or the skill set to be homeowners. Like I am not the most handy person. If something breaks, I'm hiring somebody to come out and do it. Like it's just who I am. And so with renting, there's just something so flexible about that. My energy is in other places. My energy is on growing a business. I travel a lot for work and for fun. I'm really not home all of that frequently. And so just renting's more flexible in that way. It's also, again, if we're just looking at the numbers, actually smarter to rent in a lot of US cities than it is to buy right now. I live in Seattle where, the average home cost, starter home is about $900,000. Like
Wow.
that's bonkers, wild, crazy to me.
That's insane.
And you're going to get in a bidding war with 12 other people, and you're going to have to make a decision in 48 hours. Like between when you see the home to when you need to put an offer on, you're going to lose that house if it's not in 48 to 72 hours. I'm not willing to make that big of a life decision that quickly. I don't know about anybody else. Like that feels, again, that feels crazy to me. So a lot of the financial, like the math actually is in favor of renting right now, in addition to all of the costs, right? So when you're a homeowner, you got mortgage insurance, you've got potentially PMI if you can't afford that 20% down payment, you've got all of the costs of upkeep, you've got property taxes. You've got just so many things to think about with renting. Yes, I'm not building my net worth in that way, or like, that's not an asset that I own, but it's not an asset that depreciates either because I am paying for a place to live. So yeah, I think that there's just, again, this is back to the shame in the personal finance community. The reason I almost bought when I was 22 is because my well-meaning parents were telling me it's throwing away money if you rent. It's like throwing money down the toilet, throwing money down the drain. The only way I would have been able to buy property when I was 22 was buying a condo that was an hour outside of the city. I would have had to commute an hour and a half one way to get to my job. I wouldn't have made friends because I couldn't go out after work. I couldn't see people on weekends. And frankly, I probably wouldn't have the business I had either because I was going to networking events. I was meeting people. I was learning about entrepreneurship and, an hour outside the city. I love my parents, but I would have been hanging with them every weekend. And like, that's not the life I wanted in my early 20s. So I just think that there's so many factors that go into homeownership just besides the throwing away money thing. If you want to be a homeowner, if you understand all of the costs, if it fits the season of your life and the math checks out, great. But it's also a huge privilege right now. Homeownership is a massive privilege. If you can afford a house right now, especially in major US markets, that is $1 million decision plus, a million plus. And most people don't even have the flexibility to consider rent versus buying. So just, yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about it. It's ultimately, does the math work and does it fit with what you actually want and the life you want?
Yeah, this is a really important one. I'd love to have like a dedicated episode on this because I am very much on the man in an alternate universe. I would love to be renting right now
Yeah.
because it feels like one of those underlying societal scripts, right?
Yeah.
Like we talked about before, that home ownership, it's the best
It's the
way
American
to.
dream.
Right. It's your largest financial asset. Well, I mean, not for nothing, but if you're in the financial independence community and 30 years from now, your home is your largest financial asset, something has gone horribly awry.
Yeah.
Right. And that is not to say that homeownership is bad. We're not painting that picture, but be open minded and look at the numbers, look at your timeline, look at the flexibility it affords you. All of these other factors have to go into the decision. And it's not throwing your money away for rent. Because frankly, we could make the same argument of you're throwing your money away on interest on the mortgage. It's
Yep.
literally, if you've ever looked at an amortization table of a
Oh, it's
mortgage,
bad.
it's
It's not good.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
No, no.
And especially we're recording this, April, 6%, 7%.
I think they're in sevens. Yeah, I think
Like,
it's
it's
seven plus.
not great. So, this entire time, even when the mortgage rates were more reasonable, I just thought, well, I can be putting my money in the stock market and making more money there anyway. And it's less time, it's less effort in terms of wealth building. Now, I have gotten to a point where I am starting to get the feeling of, I think I want to buy a house just because I like have the nesting instinct at this point. Like, I want to start putting wallpaper up. Like, that's where I'm at. But it's not a financial choice for me. And this is, again, to round out this conversation, when you get to a certain level of financial independence, you don't make decisions anymore based on the money. You actually don't. You don't make decisions anymore based on like, is this the smart investment? Or like, how much is this thing going to cost? You start making decisions on what do you actually want? Like I was talking to Tiffany Budgetnista the other
Yeah.
day, and she bought a condo all in cash. She did this a couple years ago. And she was like, it wasn't the smart financial thing to do. Like I should have taken out a mortgage, but she's like, I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to worry. I didn't want to be in debt to somebody. I just put the whole thing out. And she's like, yes, I could have made more money in the stock market, but she's like, at this point in my life, I didn't want debt. And when you get to a certain level of financial independence, you start making decisions like that. You start making decisions based on what fits me, what feels good, what do I actually want, even if you maybe lose money, even if it's maybe not the smart financial decision, but because it feels good for you and it's what you want. And like that is where I want everybody to be in their lives and in their finances, where the decisions are based not on the math, but on your wants and your needs.
Yeah. That is the ultimate position of financial strength and ultimately financial independence. Tori, this has been amazing. So energizing to talk to you. I can't believe it's been 5 years. Let's not make it that long until the next time. And Thanks so much for being on. Obviously, we've mentioned a ton of places that people can find
Yeah.
you. We'll put them all in the show notes. If any other that I didn't mention jump out to you, tell me about it now. But otherwise, I think people can pretty much find you essentially anywhere.
Yeah, book and podcasts are called Financial Feminist, herfirst100k.com. And if you're wondering where to get started, herfirst100k.com/quiz. We have a 6-step quiz that gives us some information about you, and then we offer you a free personalized money plan. So if you're too overwhelmed and you don't know where to start, that's a great place to start.
Beautiful. Love it. All right. Until next time, thank you for being here. And thanks for listening to Choose FI.